Hey guys, welcome to another episode of A to Z. Uh, this is the follow-up episode to the last episode because that's how episodes work sometimes. Sometimes we just roll straight into another one. But for those of you that are starting on this episode, hi, I'm Zero Rimson. I'll be your resident Yang. That's Aaron Chase. He'll be your resident Yin. I should really do that in the order that people are used to, yin yang, not yang yin. But I always start with me because I'm important, because that's the idea of a comic. You put yourself in front. Anywho, for those of you that don't know, this is a podcast I do with Aaron Chase, where because we're both somewhere in our core very similar, but because of our life experiences and who we are somewhere along the way, we went totally separate directions. Where I ended on the end of naive and rainbow colored glasses and super positive and like looking on the bright side of things, where Aaron ended up more realistic, experienced, kind of pessimistic, more negative. And somewhere in between us, we talk and things are interesting. I try to get a little more realistic. He becomes a little bit more positive, and you get entertainment watching us try to struggle to get there. Today's episode is going to be about, surprisingly enough, another street stand-up episode. That's right. We're talking about Aaron Chase and his things on street stand-up. I actually had the honor of getting to actually watch him at work. It was very interesting. It was very fun to see him be on the street for hours. Like it's kind of an interesting marathon way of watching somebody do stand up when you're used to watching stand up in like 5 minute chunks or as hour and a half long specials, but seeing it like kind of this free flowing improv, but then also worked in bits and then also open micy because he's testing stuff. It's a very interesting thing, and I recommend it to anybody who follows Aaron to like go check it out. It's a good time. Now he's going to explain a little bit of what he was doing, how it was, all that stuff, and I'll explain my experience as an audience member.
Okay, so I basically I've been turning it in. Street stand up used to be a real marathon. I used to be out there for 5-6 hours at a time, multiple days a week, because it was what my only income at the time. And now I've turned it into a show. It's like a little event where I do it for about 2 hours. I've been doing it about once a week. I make a little flyer. I went to Upland this time, and I think it was actually a good representation of what it's like. There's ups and downs. There's lulls. Sometimes there's nobody there. Sometimes I have a big audience. It kind of depends, and that about sums it up. But I'm really Zero. I want to know your perspective of it because comics. It feels like comics don't know what I'm doing out there. Like I think most comics think I'm just being insane, but I don't know.
No, I mean, I've never been surprised or didn't understand. It made perfect sense to me because it's not really that hard of a stretch. I don't know who was saying like they don't get it, but like to me, it makes sense. You're doing stand up, but you're doing it in the place where people are, as opposed to trying to find a place where they gather people for you. You put yourself in the place that people are and allow them to stop if they want to stop, or they keep it moving if they want to keep it moving. As somebody who was in the audience, it was, I mean, that's the thing. I had exactly the expectations of what I thought it would be was pretty much what it was, minus a little bit, not even minus, I would say plus a little bit more crowd work, slash interaction. Like, again, to me, it would be like, oh, he's just gonna talk and then work in his bits, and it doesn't matter who is around or what they're doing. He's just gonna do him. But you were a lot more like interactive with the people. Like they would be around, and some would stop and watch and say their 2 cents. To other people, you would specifically go, "Hey, what are you doing here? Like, what's your thing? What's with the shirt?" Like making acknowledgments of different stuff. And I found that like worked out very well. As far as you explained to me while it was in a lull, that it's like you got to kind of do that just because people want to feel interacted with a little bit. Like
Mhm.
they want to be they kind of want to be the center of attention of the show, but it's bad for you if you let them become the center of attention of the show.
It
And
depends. Sorry, go ahead.
I mean, I was just gonna say like it is a fascinating. It reminded me a lot of like how I am in the club. So like the club is, the way that I describe it for how I experience it is like middle school dances. It's like everybody's kind of nervous and they want to dance and they want to have fun, but they're so afraid to be the first one because they don't want to be embarrassed. But like once you're out there and you're having fun and you're doing it, everybody wants to be a part of your fun. Everybody wants a piece of the pie once they know they're not going to be the embarrassing one. It's like, I can't be any crazier than this person, and so I'll be second crazy. As long as he's up here, I can go and get my little bit. And it's like, it's fine. Like everybody's trying to have fun, and I'm glad to help people get there. But it was a lot like that, where like at first, when we were first there and you're just talking, people treated you like a homeless person. Yep. Which it does echo that in a lot of different ways, because you're like yelling into the ether, and like people are like, oh, don't look at it, don't look at him, and he won't interact with us. Like, let's just keep it moving. And people will go out of the way or like dodge around, or like they'll walk right through, but they're not going to look at you, or they might throw a glance at the little board just to understand, and then they'll keep it moving. But then as time went on, it was like, it's kind of like a stacking thing, where it's like that thing that I've talked about before was like things popping off. People don't want to touch it until it's already verified as okay. Like social, what do they call it? There's a pickup thing for this. It's like social
currency.
It's like that. There's a word for it, but neither here nor there. It just means other people have verified that you're chill, means that everybody else is like, oh, that person's cool with them. Okay, that person's cool with them. It's okay to be cool with them. So like at first, it's nobody. It's me and a friend. And like we're there and we're watching you, and then after we're watching for a little while, there's like this one group that's like the guy and his lady, and is like the anime shirt kid, and he's there and they're watching, and then after they stopped and we're watching and we're being interacted with, then there was this other couple that stopped, and then now it was two couples that stopped and they were a part of it. Then a third couple stopped, and then the first couple left. But now that you have that, it's like the more validation you get from everybody else already, it's like it just grows and stacks upon itself. And not to say that like the crowd didn't get crazy, but there definitely was like more people like started being a part of it, even if they were standing further back, or they were like, you could tell who was clearly a part of the audience, especially near the end there. Like when you were like calling it was when I would say the most audience was around, because like those people who were sitting on the little street block, they were very clearly like where the audience started, and then everything within that circle was like free game. As far as like what actually went down, like watching you do it again, it was interesting to see the dynamics of like you explained it in while you were doing it, that you were like, there's times where I'm like, hey, we're doing happy, we're doing jokes, all this stuff, and then I get into one of my lows and I'm just talking darkness. You're in one of the lows like that, and that's how you were describing like going in and out. And like, yeah, that's pretty much how I would describe your riffing portion of that, was like this making jokes, but then also diving into like some of the darker turmoil stuff that you just got to get out of your soul, and then popping back up. And then in between those pop-ups, you would work in bits that you're testing on. And also you would spread them out over like a good amount of time. So then, because obviously the people you don't want to do the same joke over and over again, because it's like, oh, he's just going to say that same words over and over again. Okay. But like there is a new audience at that point. After a certain amount of time, people have left, people have come back. And as long as that ratio is more new than old, then it's fine to re-roke that stuff. Another thing you said during it was like, the people's perception of comedy, where it's like, just go to the improv, and it's like, yeah, I'm just gonna walk into the improv and be like, step aside, Dave Chappelle. Like that was a very concise way of putting it. It was also just interesting to see like the amount of like dice roll random that happens when you're out there, in the way that like you get your fan base, right? And I think I think this would work with anybody if they had the gall to do it. If they had to do it, then they would. I
like that you worded it as the goal, like the goal. Like you need a fan. Like,
goal. How dare he? But and using free speech that way.
Yeah.
But like, it's the
fan base you were saying.
Yeah. So it's like anybody could go out there. You're going to attract what you are, regardless of who you are. It's interesting. You have podcasts and you have explained this before, that like you attract, you know what your fan base is, because you attracting the same people. And it's funny how on the nose, it was like cartoony how many anime people just kept showing up. And it was like on the note. And I'm like, yo, anime is popular. It's very, very popular. It exists. It's a part of the culture. There's a lot of people that like it. But they don't like gather like innately like a Comic-Con convention. Like they just came. But it's weird because you could see all the other demographics floating through,
Mm-hmm.
but the ones that like were yours stayed. Like,
That
and they were like,
the 3 a.m. Denny's energy thing just came from realizing, like, being out there for so long, I started to notice, like, oh, there's a particular type of person that continues to, and that's why my logic of, like, just build a fan base. That's what I need. Just build a fan base and they'll come.
build it and they will come.
Yeah, it's fascinating. Like, and it's also, it is still dangerous. Like, do you remember the Cypress Hill guys?
Cypress Hill.
They group of dudes, big dudes. They walked in front of me, and then one of them was like,
"Yeah,
shit,
it was like comedy," and it was like, "You guys don't want to stay," and it was like, and like you could see that it was like they thought about it, but the rest of the crew wasn't about it, so they kept it moving. But I could see because you were already closing up the show at that point. It was like happenstance time.
Oh no, not that one.
Oh, okay. Which one are you talking?
The one where big group of dudes, they were Mexican, walked by. One of them said, "Let's take his mic and rap," or something like that.
Oh, yeah. I remember big black guy, and then the rest of were Hispanic, and there was like one lady with them. Yeah. I remember that. Yeah.
Shit like that is like, if it's like, fuck, I need to figure out how to get around this. Like, it's because you're stuck. Like Joe Beltran was saying it on the Buddy Cast. You're a sitting duck. You have all this equipment. You just have to exist. So
yeah,
it's interesting. And I think the whole getting in trouble thing, you know, the type of stuff I say out there now.
Yeah.
How do you feel about that? Like, what do you think about that, about what I'm saying? Because there's sometimes where it's benign.
Okay, so yeah, the problem is, just to state my biases out front, I'm also a comic. So there's a certain level of whatever, bump it, you got to learn. However, if I take off my comic hat, I understand where people would feel away and be like, cops, please come take this man. Because, I wouldn't say you were, by my sensibilities, I wouldn't say you were saying anything like freaking off the wall or crazy or like, oh my gosh, how could he say that? Like, you weren't like, let's just go have sex with somebody's baby. Like, that wasn't the thing. However, it's the difference. Like, it's not that that's innately bad. Yes, if we were an outdoors full of only adults, everybody could take that. However, there are people with strollers and like 7-year-olds. And so you would slip in and out of like, you were very aware of it, but then your bits are just your bits. And so you're like running through it. And I'd be like, oh, that's a word. Oh, that's a no. I was like, oh, okay. I hope they didn't like, oh, they're okay with that one. And it's like that, where it's like, there's a certain level of consideration to all of the people who have kids and parents and all that stuff. However, there's another level of consideration to your art and working on your art. I mean, it's the toss up where, and a part of it is just like, you just don't want to get in trouble. You just don't want to deal with all that. So it's like, it's just easier to play the game of like, I'll censor myself for this show.
The thing that actually, it's the thing I get less worried about is the sex stuff and the kids, and far more the political stuff. Like,
really?
Yeah, because the sex, at this point, parents are kind of aware that their kids have cell phones, and that for the most part, and because every time I do something a little too over the line, I acknowledge it, and I'm always like, it's a little too much when it comes to sex stuff or not family oriented stuff. But the political stuff is what really gets scary because of the times we live in. And even though I'm not saying anything unreasonable, there's still unreasonable people out there. So that's kind of.
I would like to have seen that from your perspective in a certain way, because you would keep saying throughout the show, like, Zero, this is why I get in trouble. And I feel like, because I'm watching you, I don't know what everybody's reaction is behind me, but I feel like the way you would say the joke and then say something, or like just a statement, just anything you would say a thing, and then I could tell that something was going on back here, and you were like, I should probably move on, and then you would move on. Like, you wouldn't say that out loud. I could see the wheel turn, and you would go, next thing. Like I think you were talking about, like, I wish we just had like a third option. Like, I wish it wasn't just two. Or you were talking about something about the idea of like, what happened to the days of I agree to disagree, like that whole thing. And there was just like this air that, like, you know how like in an anime, they'll do the thing where it's like the person themselves, they just feel like they'll do like a purple background, and it's like, oh, like I felt the like tingles behind me, and I was like, I feel like I want to turn around, but I shouldn't turn around. Like, I'm like, if I keep it focused on Aaron, then he'll get through this. But if I make it into how does everybody feel about that? Like, then it'll be a thing. But that's why I would be interested to have seen it from you being up there saying it, because I wasn't seeing their reactions to what you're saying. But your reactions to their reactions let me know that it probably wasn't the best. I wouldn't say it was like necessarily like hardcore. It wasn't like, get off that, you. But like, it was still like, we're not as like okay with that one. Like,
you can feel when someone's annoyed or disagrees. Like, you can really feel when someone disagrees. And but on a positive note of it, I'm gonna go positive.
Positive.
I would say that there's an extreme catharsis for people that are on the same page as me when I say those things. Like, they feel like, oh, someone is saying it out loud in a big way in person. There's something about, like, when you see it on, because they're watching YouTube, they're watching people that agree with them on YouTube, but to have somebody in front of them out in the public say, like, yeah, this election's going to be fucked no matter what. There's this catharsis that they feel, which is nice. And then sometimes it's fun to, like, there's the best feeling is when they're like, oh, and they get uncomfortable but excited. The joke, the best one I experienced that night was, remember when the cars were honking?
Yes.
And I said something like, is this Morse code or whatever? I said something like, this is Morse code. What?
You said, if I could recall, you said, what is that, Morse code for the N-word? And then there was kind of a laugh, and then you said, it's fine. That was my nickname in school. Like, it was like something along the lines of like, that's what they used to call me all the time back in school.
My experience of it was, I think I said, that's Morse code for get that nigger. And then I got to see people be like, oh. And then in that reaction, the tag was, it's like, it's fine. It was my nickname. And throughout, I grew up in Riverside, is my nickname or whatever. And then a bigger laugh. Yeah. And you could feel, there's this like catharsis. I get why, and I don't want to compare myself to like the greats, so I'm not even gonna say names, but I get why comics who are the greats who got into those subject matters became so successful. Like watching people, there's this, Jim Gaffigan, I love Jim Gaffigan. I don't think Jim Gaffigan is the type of comic who gets a visceral reaction.
Oh yeah. Yeah.
That's fair.
That's fair. Yeah.
Whereas insert other comic that I'm sure you can picture said things that like people were like, whoa, you just said that in front of me? And there's something about it that just makes people feel that much better. It's weird. So,
yeah. No, I get you. And then there were the fun parts, right? Yeah. There's the running jokes, the
love to be an American.
I have the thing.
Yeah.
Then like there was crazy dude who was just all up in Friend's face. The old guy. I did appreciate your tag a lot. That I feel like it got slept on because he was such a spectacle.
Yeah.
That it was like he came up and you were like commentating on what he was doing as he was doing it, and
Yeah.
you said something on the lines of like, you see, this is what it used to be. Like he has no idea of body cue, no body language. He can't read body language, no physical cues. This is what they used to do. Just go up and make a girl super uncomfortable until they said yes. And I'm like, ah. And I'm like, everybody was so like, is she all right? Is that gonna be okay? And then it's like, I'm like, y'all really slipped on that joke. I feel like y'all missed the gym.
So in terms of other comics,
Then he just started following. He just like went from, which I guess good for the show, but just the funniness of like literally a group of people walked by you and he was just like, guess I'm with them now. And then he just started following them around the corner. I was so distracted. Sorry, go ahead.
in terms of, because I know we talked about other, okay, so first off, we had a discussion about this a while ago about other comics eventually doing it. And I don't think that's going to be the case. I'm in this headspace of like, I don't think comics are ever going to try to do what I'm doing.
I see a tiny demographic. I don't see it as like a 100% no, but I see it as like, yeah, there's not many who will do it just because of all of the factors that it is. And I don't even think, honestly, the more I think about it, the less the danger part of it. Because the more I interact with comics, the more I'm like, oh, they don't think about danger. Like they just say stuff and then go, what's happening?
Yeah.
I don't understand why this is happening. So I don't think that's it. I think it's more of the innate, like I've said before, the innate quote unquote laziness of comedians where it's like, I don't want to have to get the thing and then take it to a place and then be there for hours so I can get 5 followers. Like, it's just, I'd rather do my stuff, be funny enough that I come up the way of old. The way of back in the day where somebody taps you on the head and goes, you're my guy. And then that'll be the way that I get on. Or I'll make a good YouTube video. Or I'll send my reel to the bookers and they'll be like, that was great, kid. You know what? Here's some spots. Things work to a certain extent. There are places for that. Every door that's ever been open is still open. You can take that door, but there's also multiple other doors that are being opened at the same time. Yeah. And especially in the climate, me and my friends were just talking about this because they were kind of ragging on me about like my specific way of chasing the dream. And they were like, is that the best way you could go about it? I'm like, maybe not the best, but for me it works. So it's like, everybody has their way of going about the thing. And I think yours is working for you right now. And as soon as they see it's a level of success that's like beyond, like, again, right now it's still very attainable. They can still very much understand that when they go out, like, notice the curiosity does peak. I show up, Johnny shows up, Nick shows up, because we are interested to see what it's like and what it does do. However, there are the comics who see it and go, I'm not even going to look at it. But eventually, your numbers are going to get high because, like you said, they've been only growing. It's only been going up, and I don't see it stopping. Unless, obviously, COVID-2 electric boogaloo. But, like, in general, like, it keeps going up. And at a certain point, you'll hit into, this is way down the line.
2,000?
You'll hit into the big numbers. Yeah, like 2, 5s. And then they'll be like, how did he get to those numbers? And then they'll look at your thing and be like, he was doing that street stand-up thing? Well, maybe that wasn't so stupid. Now, to be fair, everybody's doing an adjusted version. I think they've been pushed to the level that I thought, if you watch episodes from before, back when we were in COVID and you were still just starting it, like still kind of getting your toes wet in it, I said they're eventually going to have to. Because the way the climate works, you're going to have to do it outside just because you need stage time and you want to work on your stuff. Everybody has shifted to doing outside, but they're doing outside like how either Beltran's doing outside or how I'm doing outside with Nick, where it's like venue kind of. Like, it's like, it's still not inserting themselves where people already are. Right. It's not like I'm going to go put myself where people are. It's like, we found this space and we're going to try to make you, not magnet. attract. That's what it is. We're going to try to attract you with how funny and entertaining it is from this spot where nobody is. Where yours is like, you guys are already around. I'm not trying to attract you because you're already here. I'm trying to get you to stay here because I'm funny. And like, that's the difference. Both have their pros and cons. Obviously, the outdoor draw people in is less dangerous because you already kind of have that built-in, the open mic factor of like power in numbers, where like, it's a lot, don't get me wrong, it's not impossible, but it's a lot more difficult to want to be the person who stepped into an open mic where everybody else is like, we're here for something, and be like, I'm gonna be a disruption, and everybody not look at you like, could you get out of here? Like, even at our mic last week, there was like this little kid, like teenager, I say little kid, but he was like a teenager, roughly freshman, sophomore, and he was doing skateboard tricks. This is right before we started the mic. He was doing skateboard tricks right in the area that we were about to start. And it was clear we were about to start. We set up the mic, we put out the table, all the comics were sitting over to the left, and it was clear he was doing it from that teenager place of, look at me do a cool thing. Like, they'll see me do this skateboard trick, and they'll be like, wow, that's a cool kid. And that's what, you could tell he was thinking that, because there was so much other space to do cool skateboard tricks, but he kept doing it in the dead center of like where the show's supposed to start. We hadn't started, so it was fine. He eventually left because nobody was paying attention. Everybody was like, "That we're adults, like we know what you're doing." Yeah, and we just kept our door on. And so he left because he wasn't getting the attention he wanted. And it's so interesting to see the like, that's the dynamic at a certain point of like, and that's why like the people who are walking by and like, we want to take your mic. That also only happened when there were like 4 of us watching it. Mm-hmm. But if it was like a full audience, or like not full audience, but like what you had near the end, and then they were walking through, it's like, you're not cool now. Now everybody's watching you pick on a person who's chasing their dreams. Yeah. Like, now you're the bully in the movie, and everybody's like, stop it. What are you doing? Get out of here. But as long as it's like just enough, it's kind of the thing of like, this is the last thing, because I'm getting rambly. It's kind of the thing of the middle school bully, where like, if you're a nerd and you own it to the point where like you're the nerdiest nerd and you love it and people love you because you're the nerdy nerd, bullies won't touch you because you're like infallible. But if you're a nerd but you're a little ashamed of it, but you're kind of like, I don't know if I should be a nerd, then they will hunt you and they will find you and they will make your thing a living heck. Because you're still in, you showed them weakness, and in that weakness they can mess with you. But neither here nor there. Again, the whole thing overall, I would say highly recommend for anybody that wants to go see what it's about. It's very interesting, whether you be a comic, whether you be just somebody looking for entertainment. Again, there's not really that much to even do, and it's free, which is great. You can like tip if you want to. But again, there's no obligation to that or anything. And so like, people do when they want to. Like, near the end when you were wrapping up, like several people were like, yeah, here you go. Like, that was a nice stuff. Thank you for distracting me for a little bit. Like, that was nice. And so that was also interesting to see that like people just innately go to that. Like that there's, you put your Venmo on there, but like, and you never say like, please tip. Please do that. Like, you never are like, it's about the money. It's very clearly about the dream chase, but that people see you doing that and they're like, we appreciate it. And they just give whatever they want to, which was also a part of it. It's like, you were doing kind of self-deprecating humor. You didn't mean it. But at the time when it was near the beginning and that guy walked by and you're like, I'm being stupid. And he was like, no, man, this is going to pay off. Like, remember that guy? And he kept it moving. It was like, I don't know. It's kind of heartwarming in that way, where there's always somebody who's a little bit like, you got it, dude. Like, you got it. Like,
I've been getting more of that recently. That's why I was feeling weird. Remember when I was saying like positive reinforcement makes me feel weird? Mm-hmm. That was the type of reaction I've been getting since doing it. And so I've gotten a little more used to it now, but it's interesting. And I don't know. I feel like, and having you and like Johnny and Nick come out makes me feel a little better. Cause sometimes I feel like, oh, is this fucking crazy? But then other times I'm like, no, it's working. Like, it's objectively working. Like, I'm building a fan. For real, I'm building a fan base. I'm getting numbers
It's crazy in the same way the Wright brothers were crazy. It's like because people aren't doing that or fathom it in current
Yeah,
standards in 2020. Obviously, back when stand up first started, it was a street act. It was like vaudeville. Like
yeah,
that's what you did. And it definitely wasn't what we're doing, but it's evolved to this point of stardom that people think they're too good to be on the street.
right,
And so to go back to the basic, to go back to where it was built from, seems antiquated and does seem crazy. But that's because again they haven't seen the plane take off yet. But
yeah.
as soon as the plane is like a plane, now they're like, yo, that's the vibe. The problem is I don't know. I still don't know. I go back and forth. Sometimes I'm like, they'll never do it the way you're doing it, and we're all already doing our awkward kind of different mutated version. Other times I'm like, when it works that well,
Hmm.
when it works that well, I can't see it not doing well, and then it just getting harped on where there's too many. Where it starts
Yeah.
because part of the reason that it works for you on some level is because
No one
there
else
aren't that
is.
yeah,
Yeah,
nobody doing it. Because if it was a bunch of, oh, there's another comic on a street corner, it's like another homeless person. You just like keep it moving, like don't look at it. It's kind of like the robot painted people. It's like you get it, and like we get it, but like we get it. So it's like, it's not
okay.
as
Prediction, and then I wanted to talk about something I was experiencing while I do street stand up so I can fix it. Now, from a comics
okay.
perspective, prediction.
Okay,
Since we're recording this and it's all going to be in the files, what
okay.
is your predict when I get to like what how many followers until you would say like, oh, people are going to try to do this now for real? And
Oh, okay.
and how long, how many months, how many years do you think it's going to take to get to that point at the rate that I'm going now?
Okay. Okay. So first, how many followers? Uh, oof.
I'm at
That depends. That
1082 right
depends.
now.
I'm saying when would you stop
Just doing street stand up?
doing street stand up? If the let's say in a world where you've been doing it long enough that like
I don't need.
it's been doing well. Yeah, you don't need to. The stuff is open back up and people are offering you gigs in comedy clubs or whatever your goal is for doing street stand up.
If I could get into comedy clubs, or if I had like an agent, if I had someone booking me and I
Mm-hmm.
didn't have to be on the street to do all of this stuff, that's probably when I would stop. Because at that point, it would probably get dangerous, really dangerous, because enough people would know who I was.
Right. Okay, so okay. So if that's the case, dang it, I can't do. Oh wait, I guess I can. I have a laptop. Just talk for a little bit. I got to do a little bit of like digging on something.
While you're digging, here's the other thing I wanted to talk about that is the craft of improvement. I get into thought loops. I get into thought loops, and I got into it in Claremont with Takashi 69. Then I got into it on Saturday with, I think Pornhub was what it was, where I'll link into something and then I'll just keep bringing that up. I can't expand on it, or I can't go in other directions. I just keep thinking Pornhub, Takashi 69, Takashi 69. And so I need to break that, and I'm not sure how. But before you answer that, what did you look up?
Okay, so I looked up a comedian who we've talked about before. Who, if you've paid attention, the one
Oh, well,
who
okay, okay,
triggered.
okay. Yeah, yeah,
Yeah,
yeah.
I looked them up, and I was like, how many followers do they have right now? And I was like, okay, so if I shaved that down by half, that still feels like a lot. So I'm gonna go 20K. I'm gonna say two. I'm gonna say 20K.
20, 20, really?
20K.
And
Because
so,
at that point,
yeah,
because I think you're about to hit. What you said, you're heading towards two right now. Yeah.
I'm only at 1,082 or 84.
Okay, 1,080, right? At a certain point, there's this, and it's in business. It's in a certain. It's like the rich get richer, right? At a
Right.
certain point, it starts to feed on itself.
Uh,
Like at a certain point, you won't need to do that, and it'll just grow exponentially. Like if you notice a YouTuber that starts to pop off, the they say the distance between like Making your first $100 to your first $1,000 is hard. Making your jump from $1,000 to $10,000 a little easier. $10,000 to $1,000,000 to 100,000 little easier. Than 100,000 to 1,000,000's hard again. But like when you start going down that rabbit hole, there's a certain like tunnel upwards. This is a bad metaphor, but
yeah, I was like, what the fuck?
Yeah, there's a certain winning.
Yeah, that Bugs Bunny mentality where yeah.
And so like when you start winning at a certain point, because you will have been followed by so many people that people are going to ask the question, hey, a lot of my friends are following this guy. Who is this guy? Go down the rabbit. Well, I should follow them so I can stay in the loop. Like at a certain point, popularity is like, I want to fit in. I want to be inside on the joke. I want to understand what's going on. And I think passing that threshold is about 10,000. And so I say 20,000 because at the point where it's feeding itself that much, that's when comics will notice when it's way too late. Like when it's like way past the point when you should have been like, yo, this is working for him. At the point where it's like popping off, that's when actually past the point where it's popping off. It will have been popping for a while, and then they'll look at you and go, whoa, how do you get there? And then they'll see it, and then they'll try it. But even then, there's still a level of like, they'll try it, realize they don't like the way it feels at the beginning, and then back off. There will be a couple who can take it, and those couple will go somewhere. But the couple who will like test the theory because they like, hey, quick fix, Aaron did it, I can do it, quick fix, I figured it out. That was the thing. And then they do it, and it's like, that didn't work for me. I don't want to do that anymore. That's stupid.
So at what amount of followers does it start? Because right now it doesn't feed. I don't get random. I go out there, I get followers. If you go down, then I go out there again, I get more followers. I have to physically keep doing it. So yeah, at what point
right now you're paddling the boat, right? Right now you're doing the thing on the lawnmower. Like you have to get it started. You're asking at what point will it and this is me going off what I've seen in the past. Mm-hmm. Usually the turnover rate on that kind of thing, here's the other problem. You do jump around areas. So it does get a little bit like the numbers start to get a little higher because you're not consistently hitting the same one spot because you're going to like 3 or 4 different spots. It spreads out. But I would say the self-feeding, like feeding into itself. Sorry, gotta look up one more person. It's not a comedian. It's just a hot girl I know.
While you're doing that, my idea would be like, I think at 2,000 people would be like, huh, all right, that's interesting. Like at 2,000, I can see people noticing.
Yeah, because 2,000 in internet numbers, like
that's fair.
It's you got to remember that like a freaking girl who posts butt pictures, also then like not like, oh, she's doing an OnlyFans and it's just her life. Yeah. Just by being that, she'll get like 2,000. That's why I'm looking this girl up, but she actually ended up having way less than I thought. So I gotta look up this other girl. Yeah, here she is. This girl is like to the T when she has 3,000. So I might have to adjust my numbers. So this girl is following 800 people and she has 3,500 followers. I would say if that's the case, you're not a girl to have it be self-sustaining, like it goes up on its own. I would bump my numbers up to 5. So 5,000 for it to be doing something on its own. And then I would still keep my 20,000 for comics to start like doing
giving
stuff. But again, even at the 5,000, I'm not saying like, and then it goes from 5 to 6. I'm saying it goes 5,000 and you get like one every once in a while. Some rando who's like, okay, I'll be a part of the party.
It's funny when you said that from a hustler standpoint, I was like, Jesus Christ, that's exhausting. But from I guess I'm happy that I do this because I love doing it. Otherwise, I would stop hearing that because, and it makes me better. It makes me a better comic to do it. So.
Oh yeah. There's so many net positives to it that's where you get back into the argument of like followers. What is that? But at the same time, it's like it is important. It's very interesting.
It's funny because now, like, it's easier for me to do 2 hours on stage than it is for me to do 5 minutes.
Mm. That reminds me. Sorry, little side tangent before you go back into street stand-up, since we're talking about numbers. Your TikTok, right? You started a TikTok.
Yeah.
What are your views like on there? What's your follower thing on there?
It's like
I know you just started.
My TikTok's about 2,500 something.
Followers?
Yeah.
Man.
Go look it up, Zero. You can.
Yeah, I'm like, what do you post on there? Because mine is, I got like, now to be fair, I'm not consistent at all.
Yeah.
But like mine's, I got like 15.
I started in the beginning of COVID because I was bored, and I was filming just Aaliyah.
What's your TikTok name?
It's Aaron Chase 91, I think.
So same.
Yeah, same picture too. So I just started posting pictures of Aaliyah, and it grew a lot. And now that I already have the followers, I'm just now inserting my comedy into it. So, it worked.
Hey, yeah, I say get it where you can get it. Yeah, okay. So, yeah, it's a lot of that's interesting. Sometimes I underestimate how much people love animals.
Love dogs, man.
Yeah, like your whole thing is just like Aaliyah a lot, and then every so often you show up. But yeah, these numbers are about the same. Yeah, so then the views on each one of these. Are you doing daily?
No, I mean I'm gotta get consistent with it. Right now, I haven't been.
Okay, so about how much were you posting on here?
When in quarantine, I was posting daily.
Okay.
But now I'm
thinking of doing a mass exodus. Like, I'm just gonna take all my content that's on my stuff and revamp it to be on my TikTok, and I'm just gonna do a like daily upload of. It's essentially a re-upload. I'm just moving them over to TikTok because even mine, and I'm not saying again they're just re-uploads. Even mine, like, and I think people, it's this thing where once again we're comics, so we're kind of late on the train because TikTok has clearly been a thing for a long time.
Yeah,
but it's like the number of views that I get on there are so much higher than anywhere else, like by astronomical amounts. Like, again, I guess that's not true, not astronomical. But if you took like what the effort I have to put behind a post on Instagram or a post on YouTube and how many views, like on YouTube, if I don't push at all, I think I get like 14. On Instagram, I get like 85. On TikTok, I could just film something in my room for like a second and it's like 200 something.
Yeah.
And I don't know how their algorithm works, but I like it. So I've only recently started that and Triller. I've been kind of like doing both.
I think it's because TikTok, it's the speed. It's just go, go, go. But comedy and improving this actual craft. The thought loop.
I don't need that.
Yeah, fuck that. I told you I had a comic tell me, yeah, man, it's not about being funny. I told you about that, right?
Yeah, we had a whole talk about it 2 episodes ago.
Dude, what the fuck, man? Anyway,
times is different.
It's called comedy.
Music is called music. Acting is called acting, and yes.
And then Arnold Schwarzenegger had a career.
And then the Kardashians existed. And we were like, I guess you don't need talent. I'm sorry. They're very people don't give them credit. I feel like I got to clean it up because one day I'm going to be face to face with them.
The thought loop. So like, I need to figure out how to get out of that. I don't know how to do. I'm sure you saw it. Every now and again, it would be like, oh, he's still.
I think you're too. Now, to be fair, I get it. You want to work on it, so that's fine. As an audience member, I'll say you're too close to the painting. I saw it, but it didn't bother me. You weren't like stuck on a thing, and I was like, I wish he would get off of this thing. Like, it only became a problem when it became a problem when you made it a problem. When you would be like, I'm still talking about it. And it's like, no, we didn't have a problem with you talking about it. But the fact that you keep saying, now that you brought it to my attention, okay, well, you could pick something else. But as far as like actual technical know-how of how to get out of that, like, I don't know, you're working on it. It's like, I saw the moment that you had where you were like, you know what? I'm just gonna ask the audience, what's the thing Fight Family about? And then you tried it for a second, and then you're like, I don't like that, and then you were done with it. It's like just trying new things. Just if you feel like you're stuck, just throw it out there, something else, and then just you're doing that. Or you could do what I do. Personally, I don't stop it. I burn it to the ground,
Right.
and then when I can do nothing else with it, something like a phoenix rises from the ashes.
Would you like to do Street Stand? Like, I would set it up the same way, except it's like featuring Zero Ripson. Would you like to do that?
Oh yeah, I'd be down.
Okay. Caveat. So we have to organize.
That's the thing. I don't want to step on the toes of what you're doing, because every time you're like building a thing, and I don't want to take away from the building or working on your craft. It's kind of the same way I had that idea that we should do each other's bits. It's like, I think that'd be a funny and interesting thing to do.
Yeah.
At the same time, I understand you're working on making something, so
Yeah.
I don't want to like, hey, here's a quirky thing I thought.
The way I look at it is I think you gain more from it than I do, but I do gain your audience's eyes. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And so I'd be down to, as long as it just didn't become a constant or whatever, I would be down to do it, and it would be fun. It would be different. It would make me feel a little safer.
Yeah.
So if you're up for it, we can do that.
So just as clarification, is it the way that I imagine you and KJ do it, where it's like you going and then you have him kind of be on the side, being there with you? Or are you saying like you go, then you get tired of it, I go, and then I get tired of it, you go?
It's mostly, so what KJ and I would do is it's not, no one's in the forefront. Usually KJ's in the forefront because he's KJ and he's faster at the shit so far. But but it would just be both of us talking, and if someone, you can usually feel if someone's like, oh, I'm going into one of my bits, then hang back, let them do the bit, then come back in.
Yeah, me and Jerome used to work like that.
Yeah. So can you hear me, by the way, even though it's by the fan?
Yeah, you're fine right now.
Perfect. Yeah, so it would be free flowing. If the only issue I could see is the long-windedness, like at some point I'm either just gonna cut you off or you're gonna have to be like, I just stopped talking for you.
Yeah, that's more than fine. And usually I'm not aware of it when I'm being like that. It's just yeah, I do have it. But yeah, you're pretty good at being like, hey, pull that back. I think the audience will enjoy that dynamic in the same way that A to Z has its certain like quirk to it that people enjoy for some reason.
Do people watch this?
People watch it, but it is exactly who you think watches it though.
Comics?
And I wouldn't say it's comics. It's like it's comics and my family members. Like my family and friends will watch it, and then like they haven't really said anything about it. They just, one is my younger brother, and he's like, I love it, but it's like, you love your older brother, which I appreciate, but I don't know if you really rock with the show like that. If it wasn't me, I don't think you would watch it, but I do appreciate his viewership. Same with my mom. She likes it because it's like, it's a good little insight on like where I am. It's like checking in on me without having to make a phone call.
Right.
At the same time, it's mostly comics who are like curious, but also like genuinely enjoy us. Like Nick is a consistent viewer. I know he's more times when I run into Laney, he'll like ask me about it. He's like, I watched your last episode and you mentioned this thing. What's that about? And I'm like, oh, this and that, and then we'll talk about it. But yeah, our consistent viewership is like, there's 6 people who watch consistently. We don't have a single video that's under 6.
Well, that's cool. Where does Nick find the time to listen to every podcast of everybody's? It seems like he hears all of them.
I mean, that's the thing. It sounds like a lot, but like we all do about an hour, right? And you and I in this podcast only have 23 episodes up as of this day. So like that's one day of just listening to us. Like if you want to do that to yourself for some reason,
I don't know.
But like it doesn't take that long, because I've done that with Stephanie Michelle's podcast. Like it's crazy how fast you run through like an hour.
What does your family think of me? Like, what does your little brother think of? Is he like, that's sad, this guy's really depressing?
He hasn't said anything. Like that's the thing. Nobody's like given like any critiques or anything. It's all been general positivity.
Zero's family. Can you give a critique? Because I'm curious.
Please, Aaron wants to know what you think of him.
Yeah.
Or the podcast in general.
No, podcasts in general, but specifically me, because that's what's the most important thing.
But yeah, to answer your first question, yeah, I'm more than down to do that. Obviously, there's no shows coming up on my docket as of right now. I just run that mic that we do every Tuesday. Every Tuesday, downtown Pomona. If you're around, you should go. I'm thinking about, that's another thing, projects that I'm working on. I have an idea for what I want to do. Again, as far as we were talking promotionals and numbers and all that stuff. And my next move is, because I obviously want to grow. I want to grow the mic and myself and all that stuff, but can't do that if there's not really an audience. I mean, obviously comics are still respectable, but you know how it is. So it's like good to get more. It's that thing where I want to do essentially what I did with Husbando, except I'm going to make a promotional video for the open mic. And I'm going to keep it centered to just Pomona. I'm only going to have it run in Pomona. And I'm going to have it run throughout the whole week and see if that draws anybody to come watch us. And then I'll see how that plays out. Hopefully good. I just feel like if I can get them there consistently.
Right.
Obviously, comics will come wherever audience is. So if I can just get the audience there, then it'll be chill.
Yeah.
But, it's that first step that's always the hardest.
When is the next Saturday that you're free? Because I tend to do them on Saturdays.
Well, that's the thing. My Saturdays, so I'm only ever off on Wednesdays, but my Saturdays are usually the lighter. Saturdays and Sundays are usually the lighter days of my week. Tuesdays and Fridays are usually the roughest days of my week as far as like how many packages because of the delivery thing. If I have a lighter day, then I can get it done fast and then I can have my Saturday. But if they have me doing a hard day, then it's just a hard day and I just got to hold that L. But usually even on a hard day, it just means I get off at like 7, 8 o'clock. So like I could still get over to wherever you are and do it. Like, you know what it is. The passion's the passion. I'll be there wherever it is. I'll be there. You just give me a date and a place to show up and you stay there long enough. I'll let you know. I'll be like, hey, listen, I'm going to be a little late or it's perfect. I'm going to take a quick nap, go to the bathroom, but then I'll be there. So I'm more than down. How long do you think you want to even do it if we're doing it?
I do it 2 hours.
Okay, so you're doing all of yours 2 hours now.
Yeah, that seems to be, it's like just enough to where I'm like, oh, okay, I'm getting tired, but it's long, you know?
Okay. All right. Works for me.
Okay, so I'm going to pick a date. I'll let you know.
Okay,
Huh?
so we'll work out the details.
Oh,
it's like we don't have to work out the details during the podcast. It's like you can.
Whatever. I don't give a shit. There's 4 spots that I go to.
Okay.
So there's Redlands.
We should do Claremont because it's like right around the corner from my house.
I could do Claremont.
I mean, if that's one of your spots. I cut you off because you mentioned Claremont so much that I was like, oh, that must be one of the spots. So
yeah.
Like,
the one by Blaze Pizza.
Oh yeah, that's where we used to do the Junction open mic. Yeah, I know that spot.
So I do Redlands, Claremont, Upland, and downtown Riverside. So the next time, I know my dad wanted to see me in Claremont, so I'm gonna do it alone in Claremont the next time. But then the next time after that, I can put you on Claremont.
Yeah.
So that'll be interesting.
Yeah, that'll be fun. But also interested to see how your dad reacts. Has your dad seen your comedy?
Yeah, you know what? Surprisingly enough, he's come to a fair amount of shows. Like he is supportive of me being a stand-up comedian, which I appreciate.
Huh. Interesting.
Why is that?
That's good. Finally, you have one family member. I mean, just the overarching narrative of your life from every episode that we've done has been my family isn't supportive. And even before we actually became friends and did this podcast, I was listening to some episode where you were talking about how like your dad wanted you to be more sportsy and you ended up being theatery and he wasn't the biggest fan of that. But
I think that was not bullshit, but I think that was in my head.
Oh, interesting.
I think, I mean, don't get me wrong. I'm sure he wanted me to be sportsy. I'm sure, you know, what dad wants their kid to go in a fucking theater when they're like, especially an athletic dude, he would want his son to get into sports, I'm sure. But my dad's perspective on it is like, if you're happy and you do it well and you live off of it, you're not fucking around, cool. Which I get. It's I feel like he doesn't feel like he's in a position to criticize my decisions in that way.
Got it. Okay. Well, we have 3 minutes, so we'll just log it out on this one. Thank you guys for once again listening to yet another episode of us talking. This has been A to Z. You can find this podcast on the Buddy System Comedy YouTube page. You can find more of Aaron Chase at Aaron Chase 91 on Instagram or on TikTok now. You can find me at @0_anime on Instagram or on TikTok now too. You can also listen to the ACMM, which is also on YouTube, and also Podbean. I believe that's the like listening place. But yeah, I believe that's all the shilling I need to do. Thank you guys for being here and listening to us. We appreciate you, those of you who are actually in the chat, and those of you who listen to us later. Thank you, and lates. Peace out.
Talk to you later.
In town, down.